agenda. When we come forward, I want to talk about this Supreme Court, what it has meant to overturn Roe v. Wade, and what is this court likely to do when it has to decide, can Donald Trump be prosecuted? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Right time. More of Areva Martin when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. New York State's Intermediate Appellate Court is now headed up by a woman of color for the first time in its 130-year existence. Governor Kathy Hochul first appointed Justice Diane Renwick to the position back in March of 2023, holding an investiture ceremony today. Renwick, who is Black, was first elected a justice of the New York Supreme Court in 2001 and is married to New York State Supreme Court Justice and former Bronx DA Robert Johnson. 24 nonprofit groups are benefiting from new grants from the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. The commission partnered with the Maryland Historical Trust to issue the funds. $5 million in grants were distributed, and Governor Wes Moore said the funds will help folks continue to share the stories of African Americans. Washington County's American Hall and the Robert W. Johnson Community Center are among the awardees. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Be advised, in Baldwin Park, there's a crash reported in lanes on the 10 West just before the 605, but also there's a separate crash that is partially blocking the off-ramp to Fraser Street, also on the 10 East, causing heavy traffic flow from the 605. In Pomona, accident continues to block the right lane on the 10 East at Highway 57, with a slight heavy delay coming from Via Verde. Sigler continues involving police activity that has 3 middle lanes blocked with a jumper on La Miradas 5 South at Valley View Avenue. Stop traffic continues well over 20 minutes right now from Firestone Boulevard.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Chargers have scheduled a second interview with University of Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh met with the Chargers a week ago at an undisclosed location. This could be an indication that the Chargers are moving closer to finalizing a deal with Harbaugh to be their next head coach. The Chargers need to get this done as soon as possible. Tampa Bay's loss at Detroit yesterday in the NFC playoffs means there will be no black head coach in this year's Super Bowl. Tampa Bay's Todd Bowles was the last remaining black head coach in the NFL playoffs with a chance to get there. Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin lost in the first round at Buffalo. Houston's D'Amico Ryan lost in the second round at Baltimore on Saturday. Tomlin is the last black head coach to take a team to the Super Bowl. In 2009, he led the Steelers to a win over Arizona in Super Bowl 43. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Got me a damn girl on my team.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe we have the best tag team in morning radio. Dominique DePrima and Tavis Smiley as the first black woman in Los Angeles to anchor a morning drive talk radio show. Dominique covers local politics like a blanket. Weekday mornings from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., Dominique passes the baton to Tavis Smiley, who talks to everybody about everything every day until 12 noon. KBLA's dynamic duo, Dominique and Tavis. It's no wonder the LA Civil Rights Department is honoring Dominique DePrima this year at its Tell Our Story honoring Black journalist leaders and storytellers event, Thursday, February 8th. Or that the John M. Langston Bar Association of Los Angeles is honoring Tavis Smiley at its 47th Annual Installation and Scholarship Awards Gala with its Community Impact Award on February 10th. We couldn't be more proud of Dominique and Tavis, who make Black history every day, not just in February. If you're missing Dominique and Tavis weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Holla, yeah.
Cover California is a free service from the state that's already helped millions of people like you get and pay for health insurance. With financial help to lower the cost of health coverage, you could get a quality health plan for less than $10 a month. Every plan covers preventive care, doctor visits, emergency care, and more. If you have questions, we're here to help every step of the way. Cover California, this way to health insurance. Enroll by January 31st at coveredca.com.
Climate justice, climate resilience. By any other name, We demand environmental justice in 2024. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2.
We are back, and Professor Marjolaine Armstrong, a professor at Santa Clara University School of Law, and Professor Del Checa, who is at the she's professor at the Albany Law School, are joining me. We're talking about the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Professor Armstrong, there's a lot of talk about there being a piece of legislation passed nationally that would reinstate women's rights to abortion. But wouldn't that legislation, even if somehow we had a Democratic House and a Democratic senator and a Democratic president in the upcoming, after the upcoming elections in 24, and they had the political will to try to, pass a piece of legislation like that, wouldn't it just run back into the same Supreme Court and get overturned again?
Well, it would be on a different basis to actually have a law that specified that there were these rights. And so you can create laws or rights by statute. What the Supreme Court said is that the Constitution doesn't say anything specific about you having a right to abortion. Therefore, states can do what they want. But certainly, Congress has the power to enact legislation under their specified or enumerated powers. So they could cite the impacts that unwanted pregnancies might have on interstate commerce, or they could say that they're enforcing the 14th Amendment's prohibition against discrimination on the basis of sex or basis of gender, which was an alternative approach to the right to abortion in the first place, that was not pursued by Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the other people who advocated in the cases of Roe versus Wade and the cases involving contraception. So it could take, the Congress could take approaches under their enumerated power, and the challenge would be, well, is this kind of law under the enumerated powers? And I think precedent would support the idea, certainly, of using the Commerce Clause. And I think that what the states have done in terms of creating all of these laws that prohibit and restrict abortion actually gives Congress a very good argument that they're using the 14th Amendment to enforce equal protection, because so many states are depriving women of equal protection without having this federal restriction on it. So it would be perhaps a new argument to use the Equal Protection Clause, but the way that states are acting now actually makes a really strong case for the use of the 14th Amendment enforcement powers by Congress.
And Professor Checa, short of a piece of national legislation like we just talked about, do you envision a world where states would be prohibited from these very restrictive abortion bans? Or is the only way forward a piece of federal legislation?
I mean, in my mind, the only real way is a piece of federal legislation because it's now, with Dobbs has been left completely to the states, and Roe v. Wade was always kind of hanging, but I don't know what the expression is, but kind of, many who were in support of Roe v. Wade didn't necessarily. What it came down to was, a fundamental right to privacy, and it's always kind of hinged. It's been vicarious, the holding, and it really, a piece of federal legislation, an amendment that's not going to happen, but would be really, in my mind, the only way to solidify and to make it impossible for states to cut away at abortion rights.
So, given this inconsistency that we've seen, Professor Armstrong, from this Supreme Court, what are you thinking about how they are going to rule on this Trump immunity case? Because there are two big cases that the Supreme Court has to rule on as it relates to Trump. One is immunity, and one is dealing with the 14th Amendment, this principle in the 14th Amendment that someone who's tried to overthrow the government can't run for office again. So they have two really big decisions to make, and they could be devastating to Donald Trump. One deals with his freedom, or potential for his freedom to be taken away from him, i.e. a conviction and incarceration on these felonies. And the second deals with his ability to be on the ballot in certain states. And this court, as you said, has been all over the place. Let's start with the immunity case. What does the Supreme Court do with that?
Well, there isn't really any precedent with respect to immunity for criminal actions that have been taken while president. It's just not there's no precedent for it. And in previous cases where immunity was asserted, particularly in Nixon's Watergate type hearings, the court was kind of skeptical of broad claims of immunity, particularly when they affected the rights of people, due process rights in particular. This is a very different situation and a very different court. And so the Supreme Court, in saying that there's immunity, would essentially be saying that the president is above the law just because he's president, because much of what he did was not carrying out the duties of the office.
Can you envision, let me ask you, can you envision a case where the Supreme Court doesn't want to go that far because they know, Trump's lawyers already said he could order a Navy SEAL team to shoot his opponent and kill him, and that would be okay. And I don't see the Supreme Court, even this court, adopting the theory that Trump's lawyers have, which is the only recourse to hold him accountable, or any president accountable, would be, impeachment and conviction in the Senate. That makes no sense, because you could just quit the damn job and you wouldn't be subjected to impeachment and conviction in the Senate. But can you envision this court trying to distort these facts to somehow say, we're not going to grant broad immunity to presidents, but in this case, these facts are arguably things that are within the purview of a president, so therefore he would be immune, and we're going to kind of look at this on a case-by-case basis. I mean, be a stretch, a very big stretch, but could you see this court again trying to rule consistent with its ideology, maybe going there?
Well, when you look at the Bush versus Gore decision, you had the court issue a decision that they said applied only to those particular facts. So it's certainly within the realm of what the Supreme Court has done before to have that type of decision. Obviously it would be shocking, and it would be completely undermining any incentive to respect the government, but they could do it. Now, with respect to the question of taking Trump off the ballot in certain states, I actually think that there might be an argument that it's not up for states to make that decision. It's up to Congress to determine whether there's been an act of treason And since there hasn't been any finding by Congress that Trump has engaged in treason, I think that the states may be on shaky ground by saying we've determined that he's committed treason, and therefore we're taking him off the ballot.
Interesting. When we come forward, more on the 51st anniversary of Roe versus Wade, right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
COVID-19 renter protections are ending for City of Los Angeles tenants. Know your rights and these 3 facts. February 1st is the deadline to pay rental arrears for rent owed from October 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2023. Residential tenants cannot be evicted without a reason or just cause. You have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice from the court. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/BlackBeyondMeasure.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste, so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because no 2 people sleep the same. Only the Sleep Number smart bed lets you each choose your individual firmness and comfort, your Sleep Number setting. The Climate 360 smart bed is so smart, it actively cools or warms up to 13 degrees on either side for your ideal sleep temperature. The Queen Sleep Number C2 smart bed is now only $9.90. Plus, free home delivery when you add any base. Ends Monday. Price is higher in Alaska and Hawaii. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement, a dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
We are back, and Professor Dale Checker and Professor Marjolaine Armstrong are joining me, and we're talking about the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Let's talk, Professor Checker, about some of those other rights that people are concerned about, that they see are interrelated to the Roe v. Wade decision, and that's the rights, again, to use of contraception, perhaps the rights to gay marriages. We know that some of the same conservative activists that were purposely filing cases so that they could get before the Supreme Court on abortion rights are also looking at these other rights. What is your sense about, will we see cases challenging gay marriages coming before this court in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are fortunately that I don't foresee cases, or at least I don't foresee the court as radical and as kind of backward looking as it's been. I don't foresee any overturning of gay marriage. I think it's we've it's been too well established, and the kind of the coalition that brought about that landmark decision, Oberfell. I don't think that there is enough support, and enough, the necessarily the right case to bring to overturn. But that's not to say that I think that there is still will be other chipping away at rights, as you mentioned, continued with reproductive health, with abortion through the abortion pill, as they say, other birth control measures, and continuing for challenges to LGBT community, and so I think there will be other challenges. I don't foresee, though, gay marriage as being as really at risk, unless Professor Armstrong has another take on that.
Yeah, I'd like to know what you think, Professor Armstrong, about some of these other rights, whether it's gay marriage or even interracial marriage. I remember seeing some articles after the Dobbs decision that there were folks who were literally trying to get some of these cases or challenges before the Supreme Court.
Well, I think the most difficult thing is finding those cases that would actually get before the Supreme Court. But I think if they went before the Supreme Court, well, when you look at Dobbs, there was an invitation pretty much from Justice Thomas to challenge any right that's based on liberty that doesn't involve freedom from physical restraint. And so he was asking people to bring cases so that they could find that there was no right to same-sex marriage or even contraception. So there are people on the court who would say that, yeah, these weren't justified or they weren't protected by the Constitution. But when you think about how it gets before the court, I think what you would have to have is some state or some state official refusing to issue a marriage license and having that challenge to the Supreme Court. And I'm not sure exactly how you would be able to do that unless there was an attempt to get an order from somebody higher in the government to make that official issue that license, and that failed. So procedurally, it might be pretty complicated to undo the right to same-sex marriage as recognized now. But
I don't know if I agree with that, because I think I know the article that I just read about the playbook of the extreme right, a part of that was not just the activists using social media to get their message out, writing op-eds, going on conservative cable networks, but it was also working with state legislators and getting them to use their offices and their bully pulpits to advance these messages. And one of the examples they gave was around the banning of "Don't Say Gay" in Florida, and the banning of books, and how a lot of that was done because the activists worked in concert with the attorney generals in the state of Florida, in the state of Texas. So I think we're underestimating how organized and orchestrated the right is on these issues, and how it is well funded, well organized, and well connected with policymakers.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, the day that Roe versus Wade was decided, the conservatives kind of regrouped and said, how are we going to do that? And they said, we're going to do this through the State House. And they have waged a campaign to take over the state houses that they're trying to push even further by having these Republican-controlled state houses gerrymander people out of the right to vote, which would ensconce the power even further. So, yeah, I think the will is there. I just don't think that it would be as simple. And frankly, I don't understand why the Supreme Court hasn't heard a case or been challenged with a case that says that these laws are unconstitutional violations of the First Amendment. If anything is an unconstitutional violation of the First Amendment, it's the state saying that people can't say certain things or read certain books. So, there has to be some brainstorming and getting messages. And I'm sure the ACLU and other groups are pursuing these cases. They just haven't come up yet.
Yeah, I hope they are. It just seems like the right is far more organized, far more strategic, and they play the long game better than Democrats and some, folks who consider themselves progressives and liberals.
And they have very deep pockets. I mean, deepest pockets you can find.
Right.
Yeah, they're funded, well-funded, individual family foundations, institutions that are set up to fund these actions and to, be there for the long haul, because as you said, these cases aren't, and I'm not suggesting that they're procedurally easy to get before the court, but just like in the affirmative action case, I mean, that the Bloom guy was out, literally soliciting Asian students. And I've been reading all of these articles now from Asian families who feel so duped, feel so betrayed, feel like they were completely misled, but were thought that they were doing something that was in the best interest of their own families and perhaps were going to help Asian students across the board, now only to feel like they were taken advantage of. So we know that. Go ahead. You want to say something?
I was just going to say, Bloom has been behind most of the anti-affirmative action litigation for the past 15 years. Yeah, he found Abigail Fisher in the Fisher versus University of Texas case. He runs these ads or ran these ads looking for students who applied to Harvard who weren't admitted, and put together this organization who, had the right court at the right time. And in the past, I'm not sure they would even have standing to bring this kind of case, because most of them were in other schools.
Well, we talked about the Supreme Court and the 6-3 conservative, but we shouldn't gloss over the fact that the same Trump administration also was very, very busy appointing conservative justices, or judges, I should say, on appellate courts and on district courts. So they are finding favor in lower courts on some of these decisions that like you said, that previously, they may have been thrown out of court. They maybe wouldn't have even gotten, as far as they've gotten, but having the court stacked literally from district court to appellate court to Supreme Court makes a difference and gives a pathway for some of these lawsuits that otherwise wouldn't have found a home. Professor Cheka, in our last couple of minutes, what's the pathway that you see forward? National legislation, probably close to impossible because not all Democrats even agree on the issue of abortion. So even though it's overwhelmingly positive, or I should say popular, with Americans getting the House, the Senate, and the White House all lined up together, it's going to be an act be a miracle. So what is the pathway forward?
I mean, I think in the meantime, I think that's a good, as you said, play the law. I think it's important for us to keep that as an ultimate goal to strive for. I think we've seen little by little states since Dobbs passing or having ballot initiatives to make a right to abortion or a right to reproductive freedom, and those movements have been effective in red states as well. So I think it's going to be a matter of grassroots, on the ground states. It's complicated by gerrymanders, it's complicated by all kinds of things, but but I think that's what we're gonna have to do. I mean, I don't see any other way forward with the regression that's come down nationally. So very sad in my lifetime to see.
Well, we are going to celebrate what would have been the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Recognize there's a lot of work to do, and I agree with you. All politics are local, and local organizations, local advocates, and activists have to play the leading role in fighting back and getting those ballot initiatives and encouraging people in this national election for president and Congress and the Senate elections that are coming up. People use their votes because their votes are their voices. Vote, vote, vote.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are out of time. Thank you so much, ladies. The next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers and the Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.